If you hurt the land and the land no longer produces what you need to survive, then you don't survive. So in order for the Hawaiians to sustain themselves, they truly believe that if they take care of the land automatically will take care of you. My name is Wade Lee, and I am the managing member of Haloa Aina. Haloa Aina is a reforestation company, an educational organization dedicated to sustainability. What we do here is we are trying to replace the ecosystem that is here today that has been debilitated back into the ecosystem that it once was. But at the same time, to recover some of the resources that this land has been providing to people for generations.
We try to move forward following our cultural values. And the values that we follow are values that was in place before Captain Cook's arrival.
At that period of time, there was over 1 million people here on the islands. And those people, the Hawaiians, were self-sufficient in terms of their sustainability. That sustainability, because you're in the most isolated landmass on Earth, was very important to the people. Whenever someone took a natural resource, say it be a tree or even fish from the ocean, there was a strong rules of how that was collected. That system was known as the kapu system. The kapu system had one penalty, and it was death.
If I wanted to make a canoe, I had to go into the forest. But before I stepped into the forest, I had to get permission from the ali'i. And when I get to the forest edge, I had to give an offering, and I had to say a chant. And then I would walk through the forest while looking at different trees. But it wasn't me selecting the tree. It was the forest telling me what tree I can select.
Through that system, this 1 million people were able to successfully nourish themselves and live off of the land in harmony with the land. Today, we have 1.4 million people in the state of Hawaii. And 99% of everything we consume is shipped in. And our ecosystems have been dilapidated to a point where we don't really have an ecosystem that is a resemblance of what was here before the contact because of the invasive species. Captain Cook arrived in Hawaii on his 3rd journey. He had already been through the South Pacific, had discovered, if you will, I use that term loosely, Australia, Fiji, Tonga, Tahiti, Samoa, even the Cook Islands. He sailed north on his 3rd trip looking for a passage to get to India where he didn't have to go around Australia. When he headed that way, he bumped into Hawaii. He landed in Kealakekua Bay at first. At the time that he arrived, they were celebrating the god Lono. And the god Lono is the god of the ocean, if you will. And he was supposed to come and help the Hawaiians. The Hawaiians had stopped sailing because everywhere they went, there was people there. They couldn't find any new land, so they stopped. So Lono was supposed to arrive at Kealakekua Bay on this day and show them the way. And he was supposed to come sailing in on a seashell. So Captain Cook arrives and his sails have got the ribs in it. He's in a wooden ship. To the Hawaiians, it looked like a seashell. So they truly expected him to be the god Lono and treated him like that. They welcomed him, they gave him everything he needed, and then he sailed away. One of the things that he left behind were diseases. He left behind gonorrhea, syphilis, he left back scarlet fever, the plague was left behind. And by the time he had gotten back to Hawaii, over 50,000 people had died from the diseases that he had left. The Hawaiians saw that as him being an imposter and killed him. So from that point forward, Hawaii shows up on a map. And now, because it's in the middle of the Pacific, it becomes a central staging point. So these other countries started to come. The Chinese came, the Russians came, the Dutch came, the Portuguese came, the Spaniards came, the British were here, the Americans started coming. One of the things that occurred is as the Chinese were in this shipping route, if you will. They ran across Hawaii because that was a new port. It was somewhere where you could get fresh water, get your supplies. They noticed that there was sandalwood here, and they were very familiar with sandalwood because the Chinese were already trading in Australia, Indonesia, India. There was already a big sandalwood trade. Finding that, the Chinese named Hawaii, and it's still used today, the Sandalwood Mountain. They went back, they created a market, they came back to the king. The kingdom had just lost the monies that they were getting from the whaling industry because the whaling industry were collapsing. So the kingdom needed some way to sustain itself. Sandalwood became that way.
Sandalwood is this really incredible tree. And it's really incredible because of, its ecological value, but also you have the social part, which is very important to Hawaii culturally and to our communities.
There are many, many uses for sandalwood, but the therapeutic use of sandalwood is what the Hawaiians used it for, which they believe the sandalwood tree was given to them for. It was used to kill skin fungus, ringworm, lice in the hair.
Sandalwood, for the older generation of Hawaiians, is kind of a sensitive topic because it was the first tax on the Hawaiian people, was they had to carry out a picule, which is 133 pounds, which, funny enough, is the weight of King George.
What the Chinese were clever enough to do is they extended credit to the Kingdom of Hawaii with interest, and it was very unfamiliar. So the kingdom got very much in debt with the Chinese. And for the next 30 years, they were selling this sandalwood to the Chinese.
As the Hawaiians were bringing logs down, they would see baby trees emerging, regenerating, and they would pull out those baby trees so that their children wouldn't have to be sent up the mountain and subjected to the same torturous work conditions.
But because they incurred the interest on the debt, they could never seem to get ahead. So King Lunaliho, which is Kamehameha IV, decided, well, what we're going to do is we're going to cut out the Chinese merchants, because if we take their shares and add it to this debt, then we can start to balance the books. He built 3 cargo ships, filled the cargo ships with sandalwood, and sent them to China. When they got to China, the Chinese government wouldn't allow them to unload the boats because it wasn't a Chinese boat. So Lunaliho brought the ships back. He stacked all of the sandalwood at Ke'ehi Lagoon right down here, set it on fire, and declared there would never be any sandalwood sold out of the Kingdom of Hawaii again. So after they burnt it, the sandalwood trade stopped, but the debt was still there.
And when that resource had evaporated, the next thing the Hawaiian kingdom had to do was auction off their lands. And that was what the big, great mahele was, the land auctions.
The land that we're sitting on today was very different in 1853 than it is today. And this is land that belonged to my family before Kamehameha turned it all into one country. There used to be a forest that had a 110-foot canopy with a lot of native plants as an understory. And then this land was auctioned in order to pay off the sandalwood debt in 1853. It was bought by a missionary family.
The landowners wanted to run cattle here, and so in order to make the area more favorable for cattle grazing, they burned a lot of the forest that was present, and they planted this grass called kikuyu grass, which is from Africa.
Our family has been associated with that land and been on that land as workers, as employees throughout time. And I have pictures of my grandfather there in the 50s and my father being there in the 60s and 70s. That land is, in particular, is very close and dear to our family. It was a tragic time in Hawaiian history from a cultural perspective.
Uncle Wade, he has a background that is steeped in science, specifically biology and natural resource management. And so he had the vision of what could become from this severely degraded forest landscape. And not just the vision, but the unique combination of the educational background, the ancestral ties to the land, the will and know-how to get it done. After the land became available, we wanted to know if we would be able to bring the forest back by using the natural resources were there, and then
By replacing those natural resources and replacing what you take,
They want this forest to remain. They want to have this forest and the resources that it provides to the whole region there forever. For Wade's generation, for his kids, for his grandkids, for other people of Hawaii. And having that mindset helps shape what you're doing in that place.
if you take the animals off the land, you have this period where there is no income. How do we get the money to plant, fence, eradicate, fertilize, water, greenhouses, and then 40 years from now we're ready to harvest? How do we pay the bills?
He, took second and third mortgages out on his land. He cashed in his savings, his 401k, just to get the opportunity to put his hands back in the dirt up here.
So it did put a lot of stress on the family. And right now, I'm the only member left because the other members have had to go on their way so that they could go back and support their families. We really thought we ought to just sell it because it was just too much of an economic burden.
But nature and all of its glory, speaks loudly if you sit and listen to it.
If you take care of those ecosystems, that land, that Aina will show you what it has in terms of taking care of you. I truly believe that if you take care of the land will take care of you. Sandalwood became evident that that is what was being offered to us by the land. Our goal here is to replace the forest and allow the forest to dictate what it is we can recover from it. One of the things you cannot ever be is wasteful either. So we harvest the dead and dying trees. The sandalwood tree is hemiparasitic. It grows very vibrantly for the younger stages of its life, and it is not a long-lived tree. But as it goes through the process of killing its host trees, which would be 6 or 7 trees in its lifetime, the sandalwood tree then becomes weak, and it starts to deposit minerals into the wood of the tree in order to protect the tree itself and the cambium layer especially from the attack of funguses and bacteria. That deposition of minerals creates the oil to protect the tree. That oil is extremely effective. It's one of the biblical oils, yet it's coming all the way from the Pacific. And that's where turning it into an oil, an essential oil, that can be utilized by multiple people became the target, if you will, of where we wanted to place our market. So we were looking for a partner that would buy the oil for an extended period of time because we were trying to do a long-term project. I wasn't an essential oil guy, I was a biologist. But I get a call from my brother over in Kona, and he says, well, I got this guy, his name is Gary Young, and he's at the airport, and he wants somebody to go pick him up. And I'm like, dude, I'm in Honokaa, and so I'm an hour and a half away, and he's going, well, I gotta work. Somebody's gotta go get this guy. And I'm going, well, who is he? His name's Gary Young, and he's got some essential oil company, So I tell him no, I hang up. The next call is Gary, and he says, this is Gary Young. And I'm like, okay. He says, but I really need you to come pick me up. So we run down, we pick him up, and still I had no idea who Young Living was. He was talking about the environmental issues and about the way we grew seeds. We told him what our philosophy was, and he was 100% bought in. We decided to do an explore together. Come to find out, it's a very high quality oil, one of the highest in the world. It's very special in some of the ways that its components are blended together. It's one of the greatest bases for blends because of the way that it serves as a palette, if you will, for other oils. Gary Young saw what we were doing in a matter of minutes. He understood, so he stepped in, and it gave us the cash flow that we needed to pay the bills and to do the reforestation. It was a blessed day. It really took a lot of pressure off and allows us to do other kinds of things. Utilizing the dead and dying trees in order to create this oil that helps people follows our cultural values very well. So, we could be selling the wood to the incense market, we could be making beds, we could be making furniture, we could be sustaining this economically a different way. But Young Living has become a great partner for us because culturally, the mission of having the land take care of the people and the people take care of the land is still tied together to the resource that is available.
What's unique about Haloa Aina is that they are using a forest product, one of our native species, to help fund the restoration of a larger forest ecosystem. One of our rarest in the world, in fact, a tropical dryland forest. So that's brought new thinking and energy into forest management across land ownership and what models can look like here for making sure that we keep our forests.
Haloa Aina now manages about 30,000 acres around us, not just our own. And we are now taking a look at helping the Department of Defense restore some of their land that has been destroyed by military activities on Mauna Kea. We are looking at 2 more pieces of land, about 5,000 acres in total on the island of Oahu. And what we're trying to do is create best management practices for that. And our conservation biologist here has decided that he's going to go and get his PhD. And this will be the 5th dissertation being done here. And he is going to focus primarily to create literature that will allow a landowner now and in the future to know where to start and how to begin in this process. Hopefully that will encourage people to stop growing exotics in this landscape and to count on natural native ecosystems, which we so desperately need in Hawaii.
We are kind of on the cutting edge of sandalwood forestry in Hawaii. And so a lot of the challenges we face just are a result of the fact that no one has done this before.
The really cool thing about sandalwood is it's a hemiparasitic plant, so you have to have a more complex system there. You have to have other trees, other shrubs, other grasses in that place in order to thrive, to survive. It needs a host. So when you're looking at it from that standpoint, having a forest management model that requires a more complex ecosystem, you get so much more out of that from the other values and benefits that are there. You get habitat for birds, they can have fruits that they forage on, you've got insects, you've got a whole diversity of plants there.
Back in the days of old Hawaii, there was a series of legends. They talk about the first Hawaiian or the first human being. The first Hawaiian was born of Mother Earth and Father Sky, Papa and Wakea. When they had their first child, they named the child Haloa, so he would be the first Hawaiian or the first human being even. But Haloa was born badly deformed. He looked like a bulb, more like a potato than a human being. It gave his mother a type of depression, and she buried her son into the ground and then wept. And when she wept, her tears watered the bulb. And after a while, that bulb sprouted. As time went on, they had another child, and that child they also named Haloa. And he is referred to in history as Haloa II. And Haloa II noticed that from that bulb and its sprouts, there were keiki, there were baby plants around it. And he took those baby plants and outplanted them. That was the first kalo, where taro comes from. It's where a lot of their food sources come from. So the Hawaiians' deep reverence goes all the way back to the first Hawaiian, between man and land. The sustenance that we get from the land to sustain ourselves is a gift from the land, from Mother Earth.
That's where the name came from, Haloa Aina, is that relationship with the first Hawaiian and its brother, the first taro plant. And it's just that relationship between man and plant, or man and Aina. We treat Haloa Aina like it's a brother, you know, trying to do what's right for it. And it's given us the opportunity to help bring back the forest that once was here. And hopefully our future generations will see what it can be again.
So the next project and partnership that we get to work on with Wade and Haloa Aina is a conservation easement for that forest. And what that means is Wade is voluntarily saying that he wants this forest to be a forest for generations to come. So by putting a conservation easement there, he is taking away his ability or anybody's ability who might be a future owner of that place to clear that forest or build a hotel or whatever. He's saying as part of his legacy and the legacy of Haloa Aina that there will be a native forest on that property from now until the end of time.
As a father of a little girl and a little boy on the way, I can't wait to see what they're gonna see in their lifetime up here. It's so night and day difference from what it was from the beginning to where we are now, and we're still in the infant stages, you know, and being able to drive through the forest and see the young trees that are out there, see the next generation of trees, really gets me excited.
That's some things we have to cherish. Hongkwai is not just like lavender. You grow this year and you can start to harvest maybe next year. It's something that you use it out. You have to wait for another 10 life before you can have that essential oils of Hongkwai again.